there's never a right time.
Yep.
The right time is usually now.
Yeah.
And what you can do is
the right time to plant an apple tree was 40 years ago.
Exactly.
The second right time is now.
You can't start a fire without a spark, and we're going to light this candle using that spark, and that candle is the Promo UPFront Podcast, episode number 98. We are inching towards that century mark. I'm one of your co-hosts, Bill Petrie. With me, as always, the original good time player man himself, Dr. Kirby Hasseman. Kirby, how are you?
I'm doing all right. Heavy stuff at the office. You and I talked before we started recording, just some staffing stuff that death in the family of one of my team members. And so that's always tough. I'm feeling for her. Found out about that this morning. But these kinds of times do allow the rest of the team to sort of rally around and lift that person up. So hoping that that's exactly what happens. So that's where my head's at. How about you, buddy?
Yeah, no, totally get that. So very sorry to hear about that. And you'll share that at a time of your choosing. And I'm not saying that in a flippant way. It's not, and that's not stuff to share right now, but definitely heavy stuff. And those things happen. Life is, I've come to the realization, I think a long time ago, that life is mainly chaos on some level with very small periods of tranquility.
Right. Yeah.
But
I think that's true.
But such is life. So we muster on, we go forward. So, but I know some things that do put you in a good mood. Right. And number one thing I know that puts you in a better mood than anything else is warm weather in summer. And, the weather is warming up. We're both wearing our Promo Cares Ukraine t-shirts, which we just got. So love that. So we're wearing those shirts, warm weather. But, when I think of summer, I think of about four things, Kirby. The warm weather, right? Barbecuing, nothing better than barbecuing on a warm day. Beaches, who doesn't love to sit on a beach? And I think about patriotic pencils from our good friends at Shepenko. I'm waving a flag right now. That is how patriotic I feel about these writing instruments. Let's face it, you can blow off some fireworks to celebrate the birth of this great nation, but kind of everybody expects that. That's kind of predictable. Great, but predictable. Maybe it's time you should show your clients how to celebrate Independence Day with thoughtful, intentional, and cost-effective promotional pencils from Shepenko. We've got the patriotic stars and stripes. I'm holding it up right here. Got a white barrel and then the American flag down there. And then you have the patriotic red, white, and blue, which has this nice gradient fade to red, white, and then blue. Awesome. Kirby, I know how much you love America. I think that's only rivaled by your love of Shepenko.
Yeah, that's totally true. Just love the gang that works at Shepenko, but the reality of it is they make the buying process simple because it's so important to get the ideas of those writing instruments into the hands of our end users. So Shepenko makes that easy. So love them. God bless America. Do.
God bless Shepenko. That's right, Kirby. Independence Day is right around the corner. Now is the time to talk to your clients about these beautiful, amazing, and really important in-stock and cost-effective writing instruments from Shepenko. Perfect for any sort of celebration, a community event, any sort of historic sites or museums, which there's so many of those around. Great little giveaways or things for those sort of things. And elections. We are in an election year, folks. These are great cost-effective keepsakes and memorabilia for candidates. So, and if that wasn't good enough, and it is, let's be honest, but if that wasn't good enough, when you put the code Shepenko22 on your next order, they're going to hook you up, or they're going to hook you up with free goods, which is awesome. Or you want to see some of these pencils in action? Email our good friend Alex Moltz, one of the great crew you mentioned over there at Shepenko. Email Alex Moltz over at alex@shepenko.com. He's going to hook you up with some random samples, and he will help you out. And they're just great people. So head over to shepenko.com, email Alex at Shepenko. I just said his email address, or simply listen to your pals, the patriotic pair, Kirby and Bill, and buy yourself some patriotic pencils. All right, Kirby. Yeah. All right, so I have the upfront section of the podcast today, which means we always talk about something in the promotional products world. There's nothing going on in the world of promotional products, so we're not going to do that today. Okay. I get to decide my topic. So what we're going to talk about, I wanted to get your take on something. I started following, I channeled my inner Kirby Hasseman this week.
Okay.
I was looking for some topics, and I actually went to, I think it's called LinkedIn. Okay, I went to LinkedIn and found topics today, and I saw this great thing. And it's one of those 5 lessons learned from X, right? A lot of different things like that. Okay. This one caught my attention because it was from Joe, or wasn't from, but it was written about Joe Rogan. Now, if you don't know who Joe Rogan is, he's a comedian. He is, I think, the most popular and highest paid podcaster, and he's exclusively on Spotify now, if I remember right. Does very long form podcast interviews, 2-3 hours. So it's a lot. Used to host Fear Factor, and he does a lot of MMA stuff. Anyway, pretty famous guy. So this was an interesting thing. So I'm going to read these to you, and I want to talk about the last one. So I'm sure you're going to agree with them, but let's go through them. Number 1, take care of yourself, then others. I totally agree with that. Yep. You know, one of the most important things you hear on a plane is put your mask on first, then help the person next to you. I couldn't agree more. Listen, ask, and analyze everything with intent. Okay. I love this. And these are for doing any sort of business. Okay. That's what.
And these are lessons from Joe Rogan.
So from Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
Correct.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
3, cherish truth and data and use that to eliminate negative people and projects, which I love that, because we have all have a bad habit of holding on to things we shouldn't. Number 4, find a role to love in your work or create it. Find something you love in your work or create it. Okay. And the 5th one, and I thought this is the one that I really like to expand on. We can expand on any of these, Kirby. Execute now, then optimize.
Yeah.
And that struck me. And I'd like to get your take on it, and then I'll share mine, or I can go first. Doesn't matter to me.
No, I'll go. I'll talk right quickly about that. Execute now, then optimize. So this reminds me of a conversation I was having at 4:30 p.m. yesterday afternoon. Yep. So we have a company, like a seasonal apparel shop for a big client of ours. And the challenge that we had is they wanted to have the shop open a long time. So they had the shop open for a month, which I had said, hey, that's not ideal, because, you know, the items that we've selected are in stock today. Right. But a month from now, who knows? Yep. I mean, no way I could predict it. But they were like, nope, that's what we want to do. I'm like, okay, as long as you understand. You know, we tried to do the communication on the front end. Skylar, my daughter, is the one managing this, and it is completely overwhelming, right? Like, so we're trying to place the orders now, and she's trying to work out every detail, because she's trying to do it the right way. This is not a critique, right? But at one point I said to her yesterday afternoon, honey, there are going to be problems. Like, no matter, like, you can think through all the details of this, but for sure, without a doubt, there's going to be back orders. There's going to be problems. There's going to be POs aren't going to be exactly right, because there's like 60 of them. Like, it's just going to be a challenge. You know that. Sure. So just do it really fast. I mean, within reason, you know how to, the pricing's got to be right. This got to be right. This got to be right. But once you have those lined up, do it as fast as you can, so that we can find the problems as fast as we can, so that we can solve the problems as fast as we can. So I think that lines up with exactly what you're talking about. It's like, we just got to do it now, and we'll fix it on the fly a little bit.
I 100% agree with you. And I think you've heard me say this before. I didn't invent this saying, but it's something I truly live by. So I've said it a lot. Fail fast. Yeah. Right? When you're doing something, fail fast so you can fix them. What I thought about this is, you know, we are planners. A lot of us want to plan, right? We plan, we want to make sure we cover every base before we launch something, start a new project. We want to figure out, you know, before we, launch that new website, whatever it is, we want to make sure everything is so buttoned up. And that, to me, and it's something you and I have talked about on this podcast. We've talked about it individually in blogs. It's something I know both you and I agree with. you end up striving for perfection, which just doesn't exist.
Right.
And perfection leads to paralysis, right?
Yeah.
And so one of the great things I learned, I'll never forget this, it was when I was at Halo, and we were in the process of acquiring JII, Kirby, which you were part of at the time. And I'll never forget, it's uneasy. If you've ever been part of an acquisition team, and this was going to double the size of Halo at the time, it was a big deal, and get the company out of bankruptcy. So it was a big, big deal. You want to plan it. You want to make sure everything's right. You want to make sure all the people feel good about it. You want to make sure you've covered every base. And I'll never forget Mark Simon, who is such a terrific leader for that organization. He said, guys, we can plan for 10 years. And on day one, there will be things we didn't think about.
Yep.
When we're ready, we're ready. Let's go. And he's right. And I think about that. And I've used that analogy when people are like, now's not the right time to have a child. Now's not the right time to buy a car or do this or do something. There's never a right time.
Yep.
The right time is usually now.
Yeah.
And what you can do is
the right time. The right time to plant an apple tree was 40 years ago.
Exactly.
The second right time is now.
Exactly. So I just thought it was an interesting way to structure that, to say, just execute now, then optimize, right? So make sure you have a pretty good baked idea. Again, you and I are both, pretty, good enough sucks. Perfection doesn't exist. You got to live in that zone. Mm-hmm. That's where things happen. That's where innovation happens. That's where creativity happens. And you can make that better as you go.
Yeah, it reminds me, you and I have talked on this podcast about, there's certain advice, life advice. I ask people all the time, what's one piece of life advice you've heard that you think is simply not true, right?
Yeah.
I was actually having this conversation last week with a friend of mine, and it reminds me of one that I don't like. It's like when you hear people say, if it's, I'm going to ruin this saying, but it's something like, if you can't do it right, then it's not worth doing. Right. Like, if it's not worth doing, if you can't do it right, like, I think that's horseshit. Like again, of course you need to do the base principle, but I think that saying holds people back, because then who defines right?
100%.
Who defines that?
That's right. That's what, and I'm going to expand on that real quick. That's people trying to define the journey, not the destination. There's a goal. And the analogy I always use when, I see someone who can be a control freak and dictate how things are to be done. If I tell a team of 5 people, I need you in Dallas by Wednesday at noon, and here's $100 to cover your expenses. Some people may choose to pocket that and walk. Some people may take the train. Some people may fly and spend some of their own money because it's easier. Some people may drive several different routes from wherever they are to get to Dallas. As long as you're in Dallas by noon and you didn't spend any more of that budget, what do I care? Mm-hmm. I don't.
Right.
I don't.
Yeah. It's I do see that as a thing that holds people back, though.
Yeah.
So I really do like that. And then I will say, I want to jump back to number 4 real quick, because the idea of
I'll read it again for you. Find a role to love in your work, or create it.
Yes. And that is a great lesson from Rogan.
It is.
Right? Like, because we talk about the how he is a famous podcaster. When he started, he wasn't a famous podcaster, and he had a podcast that, to your point, it was like a 4-hour radio show. And I guarantee you people were like, that no one will ever listen to that. And he is a great example of that. There's no such thing as an overnight success. He did it for a bajillion episodes every day, I think. And he created a place where he could have conversations that were interesting to him, with his friends, with people. And he created that space that didn't exist. And I think we all have that opportunity, unless we wait around for somebody to approve it, unless we wait around for somebody else to do it for us. So I think that's a great piece of advice too.
Give yourself permission to find that first. Don't worry about others. Awesome, Kirby. Great. Well, hey, you know what it's time to do? It's time to amp up this podcast. And there's no better way to do that than with our second topic, which is brought to us by our good pals over at Promo Pulse. Hey, it's already May. No time like now to consistently start amplifying your sales through the stunning, beautiful outbound marketing from Promo Pulse. That's right. This is the perfect thing to do if you're not doing any marketing at all, Mr. or Mrs. Distributor. So head over to promopulse.io/amp. to learn how you can set your marketing and forget it in only 5 minutes. That's not 15, just 5 minutes, folks. All right, Kirby, what's our second topic?
Well, I love that because, we both know Jason Noakes is a hell of a musician. And so this is a real quick one that someone reminded me of recently, that they, of course, the PPEF, Promotional Products Education Foundation, is doing a concert on June 8th at 4:45 Eastern time, where a bunch of our, bunch of musicians from the industry are going to put on a live concert. Matt Wagner, Brett Guerin, David Schultz, and Nick Latour will be hosting. And they're doing this to raise money for PPEF. I don't know how much discussion there is around this. I just think it's really cool. And I think that this is one of those moments where you really do lose sight of how talented, like there are a group of such talented individuals in our industry that are doing other things, but I don't know the other guys as well, but David Schultz blows me away. He sends me stuff sometimes where I'm like the music is amazing. He's written lyrics for it. He's edited the video. He's done all this stuff, and showcasing those talents in our industry, I just think is so cool. So it's June 8th at 4:45. Everybody should check out the concert, but they should donate as well. So that's, I just think so I didn't know what your thoughts were on that.
No, it's a cool thing to bring up. And Dave, when I think of David, and again, and I know Nick pretty well too, all of them are very, very talented people. And I think that's so cool. They share that. And we do lose sight of that, right? Yeah. And one of the things I think about Dave is when Brandovate was launched, he composed a song for that, made a video, and it was just amazing. So absolutely, PPF, Promotional Products Education Foundation, is a terrific cause. And so you said that concert is June 8th at 3:45 Central Time, which is the only time zone that really matters, let's be honest. So 3:45 p.m. Central Time on June the 8th. I would invite people to reach deep into your hearts and your pocketbooks and lend Promotional Products Education Foundation a hand. Cool. All right, Kirby. So I thought I was thinking about, I had a conversation with someone who is struggling with one of their clients. It's a distributor struggling with one of their clients. Yep. And the struggle is the client is a very high, in terms of revenue, high revenue client. Okay. Killing them though. Just unreasonable. And so it got me down this rabbit hole of thinking. He's looking for advice, and I shared my thoughts and all that. But when is it time to fire a client? And we've talked about that before on this podcast, but I really went a little deeper than I think we've done before. And so I wanted to bring that up. And I know you've had to do it. I've had to do it before. I think, when I think of reasons, there's really only 4 reasons you should ever fire a client. Okay. Right. But, and some of them are obvious. One, if they're unreasonable, if they're super unreasonable, you have to value your time. Right. Yep. And what's hard for all of us, either as a business owner or as a salesperson, we want to say yes so bad. Sure. So it's hard to say no. So number 1 is if they're unreasonable. Number 2, if there's payment issues, obviously, right? If they're slow paying, if all that. But part of that also, and I started thinking about it, was as your organization grows, your first clients may not fit your business model anymore. Yeah. And so that becomes a payment issue because you're doing an inordinate amount of work for what you are charging. And that's something. And so one of the things I think you have to do, either let the client go, or as you improve your service, as you add to service, charge for them. Yeah. Make sure you say, hey, you're getting enhanced services now. So the quote, I guess this is especially true for service providers. Yeah. Or if you're charging for creative services, as you add those things, you have to charge for them, or else you end up, reducing your hourly rate. Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. For sure. And it reminds me, Bill, of the book, The Pumpkin Plan, by Mike Michalowicz. And because charging for creative services is one thing, but the reality of it is charging for a pen is the same, right? Because some of those same clients can be like, well, you gave me that EQP or whatever last time. And I think that there is a place where, Michalowicz does a really good job of explaining how to fire clients by
pricing yourself out of those clients.
Correct.
And so rather than saying, hey, I'm not doing business with you anymore,
right,
that you can say, look, here's the price on that now.
Right.
And they say, well, that is too much. Okay, but that's what we charge. And so it allows them to walk away with grace without you having to do that.
100%.
And his advice was to price it so that if they say yes, you are excited to do it.
Yeah.
Because if they say yes, then you're like, oh, okay, they're a pain in the ass, but they're at a 50% margin now, so I don't mind.
And generally, that's the only way to fire a client, right? Price them out of your service or product. I agree with that. I mean, it's not like you call them up and say, hey, we're not doing business with you anymore. I mean, if they're abusive to people on your staff, that's different. Another one, when one of the things, I think the challenges that we have in our industry, especially, is when customers don't listen or respond. Right? How often do they hire a promotion products distributor as an expert or a service provider, whatever. You're the expert, but then they really like to argue with you that you don't know what you're talking about. No, we don't want to do that. And it's like, you hired us to be your expert. That's friction and that's time. But I think the worst part of that is when you have, especially on the distributor side, when you have clients they call you or contact you all the time, their hair's on fire because everything is a rush. I've got to get this done. Please help me. You move heaven and earth to help them, and then they disappear. They're not approving proofs. They're not responding. That is something where I would charge either that might be a time to take, you've done this to me too many times, I can't do business with you anymore. And I think that's okay to say, or say, every time you call me, I've had a lot of these emergencies and you haven't responded. So every time you call with an emergency, I'm charging you a surcharge.
Yeah. Well, I'm an attorney now.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
I'm an attorney. And I think that will take care of itself. I think it's funny. Again, another experience just very recently. I got a call from a client, and this particular client actually used to work here.
Yeah.
Okay. And she was great. She was a great employee.
Right.
Okay. But 3-4 years ago, when she worked here, the industry was a different place. Right.
Yes, it was.
And
the world is a different place.
Well, but she understands, how long lead times used to take, right? And really understood. So when she reached out, she's like, I need something and I need it by this date. And she didn't have good art yet. And again, she was super nice, but we acted up. We said, look, I think we can do it, but honestly, I'm not sure. So I'm going to tell you no. And and she had kind of alluded that she had somebody else that she thought could do it, but I was like, you should go with them. You should deal with them.
Absolutely. Let your competition fail.
And so, because I just am not confident, whatever. So she said, okay.
That's smart.
So she reached out to us yesterday and said, they met my enhanced date. It looks like shit. Yeah. So I'd really like to get these from you now. And now there's not a radical deadline. Great. No problem. We can help you. So I think sometimes that's part of it too, is just saying, look, I can't help you on this project. You're not necessarily firing the client, but saying no under reasonable terms. Honestly, there's never been a better time, because 100%. I think more than ever, clients at least go, oh yeah, I guess that's true in everything.
That is such a smart approach, 100% approach I think I would take in that situation. That's great, Kirby. I love that. The last one, and this is the one this distributor called me about. Okay. Clients never happy. They expect, they're never happy. They expect them to kind of read minds. And it's revision after revision. It's different product after different product. And they approve an imprint. And then it goes to the factory and like, you know what, we want to change something. I mean, it's that. And he was like, how do I handle that? And my advice was simple. I said, you can fire, because he's like, I think I just want to fire him. I said, I don't think I'd fire him. Include with your proposals. And I said, and he is someone who's on the commsku platform. I said, use that and put in your proposals that you're entitled to how many revisions that you're willing to do, specific timeframes, and outside of those timeframes, outside of those revisions, you are charging, and it doesn't have to be much. Make 100%. It valuable. I see you nodding. Ridiculous.
100%. I know it's literally what I was going to say. Literally what I was going to say.
You have to define what your time is worth. And if you don't do that, if you don't do that with your clients, you're not going to do it with yourself, and you end up running yourself into the ground. And I see this with distributors after distributor. in our industry. So really set those expectations with your clients. You don't have to fire them so much. There are times you do, but exactly.
Honestly, just start charging
much more
Yeah.
You said it much more eloquently than I was going to say, because I had that down as basically, price them out of the market, essentially. Price them out of your market.
Yeah, I think so. One of my pet peeves in this business, okay, is suppliers charging me for a proof. Okay.
Right.
Okay. Here's my caveat. I want one proof for free.
Yep.
That's it. Once I start requesting a bunch of dumb shit, charge me. I'm good. Right. But I think because, and the caveat to that is, if I send you this logo and you send me a proof with a totally different company's logo, I'll take a second proof for free. But the moment I start modifying it, I'm screwing with your time. I want to respect that. I feel the same way about my clients. If I got to send you 15 proofs, all of a sudden that $10 proof charge doesn't bother me at all.
And I will tell you, the conversation I had with this distributor in the conversation we're having now makes me so happy I'm not on the distributor side any longer.
Or the supplier side, right?
Or the supplier side. You got that right. Yeah. So
they're dealing with me.
Here's the thing. What this boils down to, Mr. and Mrs. Distributor and supplier, communication and expectations. As soon as that relationship begins, and things will go a lot better. And then stick to those expectations. Yeah. Stick to them. Yeah. Do you want to do another topic, or are we done?
Let's do this will be really quick.
Real quick.
Just something to check out if you haven't already seen it. So Mars Blackmon, do you remember Mars Blackmon?
I do. That was
the Knicks super fan.
Spike Lee.
Yes,
played by Spike Lee.
So I just think that I thought those commercials were genius back in the Jordan days, right? And so they are bringing him back. Nike is celebrating its 50th anniversary with a spot, a mini movie, both directed and starring Lee.
Mars Blackmon.
Yeah, with his catchphrase, do you know, do you know, do you know? And he starts talking about saying, I've seen it all. And so they do this kind of evolution of, from Prefontaine, which would have been early Nike, right? Up to the present day. Really, really fun. And so A, check it out. B, I love it when brands do this, when they do it well, where they sort of go, hey, this is something that worked a while ago. We're going to bring it back for a brief thing. What's your take on that?
100%. When you, as a brand, have created something that is iconic, you absolutely need to recycle that on almost a regular basis. Yeah, I would tell you. I don't know why we haven't seen Spuds McKenzie.
Right,
honestly. We're talking about that.
The graphics, they could do it in 3D.
Yeah, that was such. How about create an NFT of Spuds McKenzie, right? But I that's something I remember. There's a lot of those iconic things. How about the Tootsie Pop owl? How many licks does it take to get to the center of a Tootsie Roll Tootsie Pop? There's a lot there. The answer is 3. Yeah. I think it's great. I think it's brilliant when you do that, because sometimes ideas have a shelf life, and it's for a very specific time period, and they don't hold up. That's Joe Camel is a great example of that.
Totally
would not hold up over time. But Mars Blackmon, absolutely. A Spuds McKenzie, absolutely. And there's a Jolly Green Giant. When was the last time you saw that type of an ad campaign, or Keebler Elves or whatever? Absolutely. Bringing an iconic character, for lack of a better term, I think is a very smart way to do 2 things. One, you tap into the nostalgia of your older audience. Yeah. And number 2, you introduce a younger audience to something that worked. Yeah. And might resonate again. May not. It's always a little bit of a gamble, but I think it's brilliant. I think it's fabulous.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's fun. So if you get a chance, check it out. Do you know? Yep.
Well, I tell you what I do know, Kirby. I know that right around the corner is Independence Day, and I'm going to wave my American flag because I love America, and I'm going to hold it over my shoulder right now, because I also, not only do I love America, man, I love me some Shepenko. I love their patriotic pencils. I love the Stars and Stripes pencil right here. I love the patriotic red, white, and blue right here. If you're watching us on the YouTube, I got to tell you, great folks down at Shepenko down in Shelbyville, Tennessee, and Pencil City, USA. Dan Towns, Daniel Towns, Alex Moltz, the whole crew down there. I got to tell you, just character people, great people, and they're the best of what this country is about. They're the best of what this industry is about. So if you want to learn more, and gosh darn it, why wouldn't you go get some cost-effective merchandise from our pals at Shepenko, shepenko.com. You're not going to be sorry you did. And if you want to get some free goods, some random samples, email our pal Alex Moltz at alex@shepenko.com. Not going to be sorry you did. Kirby, we're 2 away from the magic 100 episodes. Woo!